Don't forget the RX Gaming Festive Swaps Party. There's 3 in this one. I want to show you guys an incredibly potent Amara build, a Mayhem 4 ready build that you can use to just run and blitz through loads of content. And when I say run, I mean that in a very literal sense. This is like the supersonic build. You will be zipping around the battlefield, destroying everything. And it's also incredibly potent. Cutsman, you would have of course seen a little bit of gameplay, as you'll see in a minute. Set this up so you two can be diving into Mayhem 4, running through, farming those bosses, and ideally getting some of that sweet loot. However, before we get started, I want to give a quick shout out to Elgato, one of the sponsors on this channel. They've actually got a ton of really good Black Friday deals running right now, so if any of you guys are looking to pick up capture cards, stream decks, Elgato lights, stuff like that, I'll link their deals page down below because they've got some pretty sweet things and a chance to save a bunch of money. Anyway, with that being said, let's turn our attention to builds. We're going to start by going over the gear. As mentioned, the Cutsman is basically the weapon of choice for this one. This is more so specifically for the Malawan takedown because, of course, a lot of the enemies are these sort of big robotic machines with large hit zones. So, of course, the Cutsman is great at spreading that damage and just in general doing a ton of great numbers. Of course, if you were to fight some, slightly more individual targets, you could potentially swap this out for a few other things, but for the purposes of doing what we do in this build, you're going to want to grab yourself a Cutsman. Again, I'll link that video down below if you guys want to farm it yourself, you want to go and grab it. In this situation, I have a corrosive version, which is mainly used for the armor, of course, against the machines. I then have the incendiary one, which of course is for flesh when you're fighting human targets, and I have a shock version, which is good for taking down shields. Now, the two most important parts of this build outside of that are the class mod, which in this case is the spiritual driver. The reason this one is so important is because whenever Amara activates her action skill, she applies her action skill element to herself, and Amara's gun damage is then increased while moving, and the quicker she moves, the greater the gun damage bonus. Now, you'll see why that makes sense in a moment, but long story short, when you activate your action skill, it makes you move incredibly fast, so this basically goes hand in hand. You're going to be running around super fast, and you're going to be doing a great deal of damage. On top of that, you're also going to want to snag yourself an elemental projector. This gives you a whopping 90% damage boost to your elemental damage, so that in itself is incredibly important, plus while suffering an elemental effect, it also increases your damage with that same element. Now for these ones, the spiritual driver can actually drop from Celestro, which is a crew challenge target on Necrotophaeo. So if you want to go and farm that, that is what you are going to be looking for. Of course, again, it is still random drop, but if you want to go and pursue that, Celestro is your target. And as for the elemental projector, this is kind of just a random drop. It can drop from pretty much anywhere, so it's a little bit harder to pursue, but basically it's one of the relics that you're ideally going to want to find, which have an epic version in this case, but it does exactly what we need. Now, with that being said, let's turn our attention to the skills. Now, we're going to start by talking about the Fist of the Elements tree, since this is where most of the points are spent, and we'll then jump over to the Broad tree, which is where we get some of our survivability. Of course, your action skill of choice is going to be Phase Grasp. This is the one where Amara summons a giant fist, and that, of course, locks an enemy target in place. In truth, as you'll see with the gameplay, a lot of the time we're not actually using this to grab enemies, we're just simply using it to proc the necessary skills, so that's why anytime you see me on the ground using the skill, there's a reason behind that. But, of course, this is still an important part of the build. You then want to put 5 points into Anima, where Amara's status effects deal increased damage over time and have increased duration. Her action status effects deal further increased damage. You then want to put 5 points into Tempest, where
an Amara classic.
course, Amara deals increased elemental damage, and shock damage is further increased, so this in itself is incredibly important because depending on the element you set up, either way it's going to boost your flat out damage. You then want to have some points in Wildfire, because whenever you apply a status effect to an enemy, it has a chance to spread to a nearby enemy, so that in itself is pretty nice. You reload it, and still just other nearby types. And then the one is, of course, have your Incendiary against flesh targets. You want to equip that. Meanwhile, if you're going to be in a situation where you are fighting, say, machine targets with armor, then you're going to want to equip this one instead. And of course, outside of that, you're also going to want Allure, where Amara's action skill creates a singularity that pulls in enemies. That, of course, is your choice over there. So that is basically the Fist of the Elements tree. Then if we jump over to the Brawl tree, this is where you'll get some of your survivability. You have Personal Space, where Amara's weapon shots deal bonus damage based on the distance to her target. The closer the greater the bonus. You then have Clarity maxed out, where Amara constantly regenerates health. The lower her health, the more powerful the regeneration. And after using an action skill, this bonus is doubled for a few seconds. You have points in Samsara. Admittedly, in this situation, this is... You could probably spend these elsewhere, given that we're not really going to be using the action skill in the conventional sense. Typically, Samsara is that whenever Amara deals damage to an enemy with her action skill, she adds a stack of Samsara, and for every stack, you get increased gun damage and health regen, but since we're not using it in the conventional means, you could probably put that elsewhere. You could even throw it in something like Vigor, if you really want it. However, we then have Helping Hands, where for a few seconds after using her action skill, Amara's arms remain active and grant her damage reduction. You have Mindfulness, where whenever Amara takes damage, she gains a stack of Mindfulness. For every stack of this, Amara gains improved shield regeneration and movement speed, and the stacks decay after a few seconds. You then have one with Nature, where Amara gains increased max health and elemental damage resistance to her action skill element. And you have Guardian Angel, which of course is incredibly useful because, you know, if ever you enter the fight for your life state, she immediately gains a second wind, restores her health, and creates an action skill elemental Nova that can of course knock back enemies. So this is just nice, especially if you happen to be running stuff solo. It's just a good way to get back up. And again, as a reminder, you of course have Blight Tiger if you want to apply corrosive damage. So this part is incredibly important. You definitely want to make sure that you are adapting your build based on the weapon you're using. If you want to go shock, you simply unequip it. If you want corrosive, you grab it from the Brawl tree. And if you want to go Incendiary, you of course grab it from the Fist of the Elements tree. Now, to kind of summarize all the stuff that we kind of just went over, basically from the Brawler tree, you are mainly using this for survivability. Clarity, Helping Hands, and the One with Nature skill are all basically there to increase Amara's tankiness, which allows her to survive even in Mayhem 4, because you're using your action skills so regularly that Clarity and Helping Hands basically have near kind of 100% uptime, meaning you benefit from them as much as possible. And of course, One with Nature lowers the damage you take from your class mod. Mindfulness is incredibly important because this is where you get your movement speed buff from, and you want to keep this maxed out at all times. So that's why in gameplay, you use the Phase Grasp looking directly at the floor, because then it counts as a miss, it instantly refunds it, but it still procs the skills, so you basically get the stacks, and you can use this as a means to maximize that uptime, ensuring you always have those max stacks, ensuring that you can always keep them moving, so that way you can keep zipping around the battlefield. As for the Fist of the Elements, of course, the top level summary for that is that Infusion, Tempest, and Wildfire are all there to make your elemental damage and your status effects incredibly potent, which of course goes into your overall damage output. Dread is there for gun damage, and Sustainment is again another massive survivability boost, giving you basically 20% of your damage as healing. So all of this together results in a very, very fun build to mess around with. If you haven't tried this out and you are a Mara player, I highly recommend trying it, because it's almost one of those things where once you've used this and you've moved this fast, going back to any character that doesn't have this movement speed suddenly feels like you're walking through mud. So, I mean, that's kind of a blessing and a curse, but general flow for this is incredibly simple. You grab your elemental weapon that you want to use based on what you're going to be fighting. You equip the appropriate augment so that you have the associated element on your action skill. You then go in and use your action skill facing the ground so that it then procs all your stacks. Max them out, you run around, you unload your cutsman, basically in between each magazine. Generally speaking, this is how you can kind of get your timing down. You fire off a magazine, you then go and reuse your Phase Grasp into the ground, reload your gun, rinse and repeat, and you run around super fast. Again, because you're pretty tanky, you'll be